Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining. And this is just a 5-minute or less review of Wednesday's night's lesson. So with that, let's dig right in. And we are beginning this series called Unstoppable in Exodus chapter 1. We're going to be working through the book of Exodus. So Exodus chapter 1. And what we see in this chapter is that God's promises are unstoppable. God is unstoppable. And we see there in Exodus chapter 1, verse 7, God fulfilling a promise he made back to Abraham. And it says this, but the Israelites were fruitful and multiplied greatly and became exceedingly numerous so that the land was filled with them. See, God was fulfilling his promises to Abraham when he said, I'm going to give you descendants as many as the stars. He told Abraham that back in Genesis 15. And what we see is God fulfilling his promises even though they're in Egypt. And so this is a problem, though, for the Egyptians. This is a problem for Pharaoh because there are so many that he becomes afraid of them. And so he does three different ways he attempts to stop God's promise. He attempts to keep Israel from multiplying. And so the first way is that he made them slaves, made them work hard, build cities, and just treat them inhumanely. But it says in verse 12, look at it, it says, the more that they were oppressed, that they were multiplied. The more Egypt oppressed Israel, Israel multiplied. And so we see there God is unstoppable. Nothing can stop him. And no amount of oppression and hardships can stop God or hinders him from keeping his promises to Israel. And so Pharaoh gets secretive and tries to do this secretly, and he calls the midwives to him. And so his second attempt tells them, hey, as you're trying to help the Israelite women give birth, I want you to check and see if it's a baby boy. When you find out it's a baby boy, go ahead and just kill the baby and say it was a complication of the birth. And so this was a secret way to try and take out the baby boys of Egypt, to stop them. But even this says the midwives fear God more than Pharaoh, and so they didn't obey him. And so there, Pharaoh's, again, unable to stop God's promise. And then the third attempt is in verse 22. And we see Pharaoh just calling all of Egypt and saying, grab the Israelite baby boys and throw them into the Nile River. And so what tragedy, what hardship, what uncomfortable place to be in Israel. And yet, what you see is that God's promises are unstoppable. You can count on him. You can depend on him fulfilling his promises no matter how much somebody tries to stop him. You know, God doesn't promise us comfort or ease. What he promises us is to always be with us. He told Jacob before he went down to Israel to join his son Joseph, he said, Jacob, don't be afraid. I promise that I will make your people into a great nation there, and then I will go down with them and I will bring them back. Genesis 46, verses 4 and 5. And so if you look at that, you'll see that God promised to be with us. He doesn't promise to an easy life. And what I want to do is just look at two different promises of God that we find in the New Testament. Because God doesn't tell us to have many children, that he's going to give us many children, but he does make promises to us. First, go through, as a way of application, read Ephesians chapter 1. And just start underlining all the promises, all the blessings that God gives to you. They are a lot of them there. So look through Ephesians chapter 1 and do that. But one that really sticks out to me is John 15:7. And he says, when Jesus abides in us and when his words abide in us, that we can ask whatever we want and God will do it. And what's amazing is when my will, what I want, and what God wants, when those things line up, when I want to do what God wants to do, God says, I will fulfill it. I will do it. And so with this, what we see is that we can count on God. He is unstoppable. I have seen him work in my own life, that his promises are unstoppable. He's somebody I can count on. He will save. It says in Romans 10:13, it says, whoever calls upon the name of the Lord will be saved. And so what I've seen is God do that. And that's what I want to be a part of, something unstoppable, the unstoppable God that I can count on and depend on each day. And so I hope this encourages you and lets you know what we're doing here in youth group, but also a good way to review and say, yeah, we need to trust in the unstoppable God.